Hey everybody, wearing my Silence of the Lambs shirt in honor of this episode or video, whatever you want to call it. Michelle bought that for me because she's an awesome woman. Anyway, John had mentioned something I should try doing, and it kind of taps into the other things that I love most in my life, other than music and punk rock and heavy metal and all that stuff and independent music. I'm really also into movies. Love, love, love movies. By the way, if you hear that noise in the background, she's vacuuming right now, so hopefully it won't be too annoying. Especially good horror movies or cult movies. And I'll just talk a little bit about what originally got me into it and then the idea that John had. First of all, I was probably 6 or 7 when I saw the original Haunting. Still stands up as one of the best haunted house movies ever made. And if you've only seen The Haunting that was made in the late 90s, early 2000s, you should definitely go back and check the original black and white Haunting. Another unofficial remake is The Haunting of Hell House, which is also pretty good, from the early 70s, and that has Roddy McDowall, and Roddy McDowall is also always awesome. So anyway, that spooked me. I had nightmares and everything. So then I kind of became obsessed with horror movies. Of course, in those days, you pretty much just had to catch them on TV. We used to love to watch, or I used to love to watch, like Nightmare Theater or Chiller Theater. I think they had Owl Theater for a while. Sometimes they'd even show them in the afternoons on like Channel 11 or Channel 13. So it just depended. You'd have to search them out. I'd go through the TV guide and circle things and find what I wanted to watch. Then eventually videotapes came out, and then it was a whole new thing because it was just a whole glut of them you could get, which was amazing, especially some of the weirder, more obscure stuff. And then by the 80s, I started getting a subscription to Fangoria magazine. And John's thought was I should just pick a random magazine and kind of thumb through it from the 80s. Now, it could be really interesting to see the ads and what movies they were touting and what ones actually became big and they didn't know it. It could be kind of cool to look at. Before that, though, I want to do Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. That was the original monster magazine, started by Forrest J. Ackerman. Anyone who's a little older might have heard of him. And he really was the first one to popularize fandom for like genre movies. No one really had anything like that before. He made Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. And it was a lot more into like the old Universal horror and Hammer and stuff like that. But the very first monster magazine I ever bought was the Famous Monsters of Filmland. I wish I still had it. I think it's somewhere. It had Peter Cushing on the front, and it had Squirm as one of the movies inside, and I was hooked. I had read every page, and I got a few more. And before I got Fangoria, I just happened to pick up a Famous Monsters of Filmland, and that's what we're going to go through today. So I will introduce that to you in just a moment. So this is Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 163, and you can see it cost $1.75 in May of 1980. And it was featuring a brand new movie that was going to be coming out, and who knew if it would be a hit or not, but Friday the 13th. Interesting. Let's take a look at what's inside. I haven't looked at this magazine for 20 years. So you could buy Buck Rogers model kits and action figures. That was on TV. So there's Mr. Forrest J. Ackerman. Hey, Darth Shadows. He liked to do puns. So Darth Shadows, obviously Star Wars was out by then. That is Barnabas Jones from Dark Shadows, the TV series. They would have their Fang Mail. And you have like people writing in. Total Geeks. I bet you if you look through all these, you'd probably find some famous people eventually. And then their articles. So here it is. The first article. Friday the 13th. Don't read this on Friday the 13th. And the amazing thing about this is what struck me. This is the first time I got a magazine off the shelf, and it was full of gore. I mean, that was crazy. My mind couldn't get wrapped around it. I was like, what the heck is this? And it just had all of these horrific images, and not to mention, huge spoiler if you hadn't seen the movie yet, but if you still haven't seen it, sorry, spoiled it for you. All right, what's some other new ones? The Orphan. I don't know if I've ever seen The Orphan. Supposedly that was going to be a double feature with Friday the 13th. Look at that. You Have a Date with Death, Friday the 13th. Warning, Due to the unusual horror shown in this film, a $50,000 insurance policy is in effect, which states that if death by shock should occur while viewing this film, Friday the 13th, the orphan, the above sum will be paid to the estate of the beneficiary. I love that kind of stuff. Silent Scream, which I think I have seen. The Coming. I don't think I ever saw The Coming. Dominique. Don't really remember Dominique either. So it's really interesting to see. They're promoting things that maybe never made it, or some that did. Hey, look at this. The whole thing about Get Smart. Who would go figure Get Smart? Has anyone ever here seen Get Smart? And I don't know why there's a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica in there. I don't know. I think this might have been, Get Smart was going to have a remake movie called The Nude Bomb, which I believe, The Nude Bomb, I think that was what it was. And there you go. There's this Battlestar Galactica Cylon cornadilly bobbers going on. Aha, The Fog. Now we're talking. So this is the second major movie by Mr. John Carpenter. You can't, well, third if you count Dark Star. But he did make Halloween, of course, was a huge hit. Then he made The Fog, which I quite like. It's very moody and weird. It's not as much gore or action as the Halloween movie, so a lot of people didn't like it as much. But The Fog is pretty fun watch and has that characteristic John Carpenter score, and it's really a love letter to ghost movies. Here's stuff you could buy. Star Wars electronic action battle computer. Look at that, isn't that cool? And a radio controlled star sandcrawler. I bet you if you own that now, it's worth some money. They had some kind of fog contest in here. That's pretty cool. And then here's Gone But Not Forgotten. People who died. Someone from the original Thing. There's the blood bags feeding the little Thing plants, if you've ever seen the original Thing. Someone related to King Kong. Not sure which one that is. How to Make a Monster. A classic chiller remembered. Oh, look at all these monster masks. Oh, these are old. These are old school. And some of this stuff. Oh, I think that was How to Make a Monster was that movie. It Conquered the World. I've seen that. It's this weird, crazy looking kind of, I don't know what you call that creature. And believe me, the other ones we're going to get into are going to really start getting into the 80s horror, which you guys will all love. Oh, this mystery photo here. Does anyone know who this mystery guy is? I want to say it was the guy from 50 Million Miles to Earth, or whatever it's called, or Quatermass and the Pit. A great later Hammer movie, Quatermass and the Pit. More Star Wars stuff. Millennium Falcon, Imperial Troop Transporter, Open Up Model. Look at all that stuff you could get probably for really cheap back in those days. It's amazing. There's a bunch of stuff here. Oh, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Look at that. Old monster movie stuff. Love this stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I am enjoying it. Look at that. Grrr. There's a whole bunch of stuff on that. I would just eat this stuff up. Just monsters and monsters and monsters. And then you get to some really cool stuff. Look at this. This is stuff, I love the ads. Star Trek books. Look at all these Star Trek books you could buy. The nerds were on patrol back in 1980. They really wanted their Star Trek. Star Trek was still pretty huge, even back in those days. And some other weird stuff. A biomechanical robot you build. Biotron. And then you have the Zodar Action Warrior. Action Attacks Warrior. I can subscribe to Famous Monsters, which I never did. Shogun Warrior. I think John had one of these Shogun Warriors. I think he might have had the middle guy. John, chime in. There's a new Alien movie novel. I have that. And I don't have the Alien record, but I will do that one of these days. The Alien movie novel is cool. There's a bunch of stuff you get. Nostromo cap, Nostromo patch. I wish I had all this stuff. It's amazing. There's a bunch of Alien stuff you could buy. Alien Blaster Target set. Look at that. Pretty cool stuff. King Kong stuff. Flash Gordon, Meteor. You could get Star Wars masks, because obviously Star Wars was still huge, as you can see. Pretty cool. Kind of monsters, Monster World, other kind of magazines you could buy. Here's a whole Battlestar Galactica section. Oh, there he is. Look at all that. Battlestar Galactica was a big deal because that was the closest thing to Star Wars we had on TV. So people loved that stuff. Sci-fi posters. I do wish I had some of these sci-fi posters. A lot of them are probably Frank Frazetta. He was a big guy back in the day. Or Boris Vallejo. I think is how you say his name, Vallejo. Those two were like the big sci-fi artists. Fantastical LP and record albums. John would probably dig some of these. Godzilla. Poe with the pipes. There's a bunch of weird stuff. Mandrake. $6 Million Man used to be a big thing back in those days. A little late for that, but it's about the time. And then here's all your back issues of Famous Monsters of Filmland. I have just a few of these, not many. I didn't really get into them that much. I wish I had got into them more, but I definitely got into Fangoria. They have more back issues. You have some monster kits, model kits you could get. Frank Frazetta calendar. It's cool stuff. Latex rubber mask heads. I was always jealous. I wish I had the money to buy those kind of things. Of course, now they're probably really cheap compared to what you can get these days. But even back then, they're pretty expensive. Look how expensive. $23, $42. So back then, that's a lot. That's like $100 basically. It's a Graveyard Examiner, little quizzes and things. Crossword puzzle, believe it or not. I never did it, but I probably should. Hey, look, it's the Monsters of the Month. Little kids, nerdy kids who sent their pictures in. I never did that, but I like the kid that gives his own little face mask. That's pretty awesome. And then at the end, we're just getting into like other stuff. Little stuff about Star Wars and things. I think we're almost to the end. There's some model kits for Battlestar Galactica, Cylon Raider. This is going to be giving some people flashbacks. And then the last thing, there's some Star Trek masks. And a whole bunch of Star Trek model stuff you get. And the back page, New Warriors Battle Jacket. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like to see more, I will keep doing it. Fangoria to come. Let the gore begin.